So in this tutorial you're getting 5 effects for the price of 1. It's a bargain. Basically just some odd random effects that you can use in your gaming montages. Yeah, that's what they are. So the first thing we're going to do is bring our clip into Fusion, place it on the timeline and make sure your playhead's over your clip and hit the Fusion button. We've now got our clip in Fusion, media in, brings the clip from the timeline and media out, takes it back to the timeline. At the minute nothing's happening because we haven't done anything. So select media 1, Command and C will copy it, click away from the node, then Shift Command and V to paste an instance. So this is just an exact copy of our media. Next we're going to take a polygon and we're going to drop it onto the back of our instance media, and we're going to use this polygon to create a mask around the hand. So I'm going to do this quite quickly and quite roughly. When you're doing it for real you need to sort of take care and get the mask as close to the hand as you can. So we're going to take instance of media 1 and drag it into our viewer. At the minute you can't see anything because the polygon is masking everything, so we're going to invert the polygon so we can see what we're doing. Pressing the control key and scrolling your mouse button zooms in and out. So once you've got roughly where you want, we can start making our mask. I'm going to go fairly quickly and not massively accurately on this, just so you can see what's happening. And what you'll end up with is no hand. So what we come do is come back to our invert node, or invert in the inspector and uncheck it. So now we've got our hand. The next thing we need to do is animate the mask so that it stays with the hand. What I mean by that is if we use our arrow keys and move a couple of frames forward, you'll see that our hand has moved. So what we need to do is bring our mask so that it again fits our hand. And again I'm doing this really quickly and really roughly, so, and then another couple of frames and you'll do the same again. Is just bring your mask in to your hand. Now this is a long and tedious process, so what I'm going to do is to bring in a copy of a polygon that I've previously made. So this polygon has the mask animated a bit better, but it's already animated and already keyframed. So now when we play through our mask, we'll kind of follow our hand over that sort of area. Cool. Next thing we're going to do is going to take our instance of media 1, we're going to press shift and space bar and type edge and look for the edge detect node, hit enter, and we're going to put the edge detect node in to our viewer. Now you can see that it does what it says on the tin. It basically gives more of an outline, and you can soften that, you can brighten it or darken it to the desired sort of look that you're after. After the edge detect, we're going to throw it through a colour corrector. Where we can pick whatever colour we want our hand to be. You can have blues or reds, whatever colour you want really. Doesn't really matter. And finally we're going to stick that through a glow. And again, the glow does what it says on the tin, and it's just about playing with it to get the look that you're after. And once we've got the glow, we're going to bring the output of the glow and merge it back onto media 1. And when we view our output, the hand is overtaken from the original footage. The only other thing we need to do is turn it on and off. So we skip through and find the point that we want it to turn on. I'd say just as the thumb sort of closes, so there. So we go to our merge node, we come to blend and set a keyframe, and then we go back a frame and drop the blend to 0. And then when you play it through, turn your sparkly hand on and it follows. The reason I use this particular clip, or this kind of clip, is these foreground features, although they move a little, tend to be sort of fairly stationary, so you're not having to build your mask across loads of frames. So in this instance we sort of start to mask here, and there's only 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or so frames that you need to sort of, by this point the hand is pretty much stationary, so it just makes life a bit easier. You can do exactly the same thing on a moving object, but obviously masking out an area on a moving object will be much more complicated. So anyway, that's the first of the effects done. So for our second effect, I'm going to actually take the clip that we've just used for the hand glow and use that as the basis for the second effect. So select everything, press and hold the Option key and slide to make a duplicate, and then position it wherever. So if we now come back into Fusion with this second clip, as you see, the nodes we've just been working on are all there. Now, I discovered this as much by accident as design, to be honest with you. If we come up to about where the hand comes on, now if we hit the polygon mask and simply hit invert, what we find is that the hand is the original colour, but the background now takes on this sort of neon-y glow thing, which could be quite nice. Now what we also want, much as we mask the right hand, is we need to mask the left hand and maybe mask your map a little bit, whatever. So all by the magic of forethought, I have these 3 polygon nodes that I did previously. So this polygon is the same as this one, so we can disconnect that, move those out of the way, bring these in, and you've still got this effect. So if we invert this polygon, we get back to our background. If we now select, press Ctrl and P, so these 2 nodes are now both working on the hands. Oh, I didn't mask that out in the end. This third polygon I used to mask just for this clip, as he comes forwards, he swings round, and as he swings round, just at the end of the clip, we have this doorway come into view, and this doorway is actually outside the building, which is why I added this mask, so that it looks as though this light is on the inside of the building as opposed to the daylight outside. So with all that, he's switched on his funky light thing, whatever you want to call it. I don't know, I don't play these games, I just mess about in Fusion. We can mess about with, so we can mess with the colour correction, we can change the colours to whatever you want, we can mess with the glow, bring that down so that you've got a bit more of a, whatever you want it, play with your various settings until you get the sort of look that you want. And that was pretty much it. If you then play that through, you go into this sort of neon-y type thing, and you just catch the daylight coming in towards the end of the clip. That's pretty much the second effect. It's the first effect inverted, basically. Again, it's all about getting these masks right, really. Taking time, masking them. You can sort of soften the edges a little bit to make it look a bit better. And yeah, as I say, they're not ideal. I was not doing them as clean as I could do them, but you get the idea. You need to take more time, make sure your masks are right. As I say, I don't play these games, I don't make montages. I just sort of tinker and make different effects in Fusion. So I guess that's where I come from. But maybe it might give you some ideas for your montages. Okay, onwards and upwards. Okay, so our third effect is the sort of smoking hand effect. So again, bring a clip into Fusion or into the Edit tab, select it, put your playhead over it, and go into Fusion. Now again, we're going to need our mask for this, which hopefully should be there, just to save redoing it. And we will again need an instance of Media 1. So select Media 1, Command C, click away, and then Shift Command V to make an instance. We will again put the polygon in to our Media 1, and we'll make sure that it is showing. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put instance Media 1 into a bitmap. So select instance Media 1, Shift Spacebar, bitmap. Bitmaps by default think they're being a mask, and so go into the wrong place. So we need to disconnect it and put our polygon back in, and now we're going to feed the output of Media 1 or instance Media 1 into the yellow bitmap input and view that. Next, we're going to take a second output from our instance of Media 1, and we're going to pipe it back and onto the output of the original Media 1, which will create this merge. And we're going to put that merge at the very end of our pipeline. Basically that'll be the last thing that is built on this composition, so we will have our original hand back there. and the smoke effect will appear to be sort of understroke around it. So we have our bitmap. Next we are going to pipe our bitmap into a fast noise. But to do that I'm just going to make a bit of room because I'm going to build quite a bit inside this little rectangle. So we've got our bitmap selected. We're going to come to this middle icon bar, to the second icon on the left, which is fast noise. I'm going to drag that in and we're going to pipe our bitmap into the blue. In fact, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to look at the fast noise first. So this is your fast noise. It's just randomly generated areas of light and shadow. What I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust it slightly. So I'm going to come to the inspector. I'm going to increase the detail and the contrast and the brightness, and then I'm going to scale it down a little bit to about there, and I'm going to come to seeth rate and I'm going to increase that up a bit. Basically all the seeth rate does is it animates our fast noise. So now we've got our fast noise going. I'm going to take our bitmap and put it into the blue mask input of our fast noise, and we end up with this sort of smoky thing around the area of our hand. Now the next thing we want to do is displace this, i.e. move it around a bit so that you still have the smoke but it spreads a little bit further out. To do that we're going to use a displace node. So again, click outside, displace, and we're going to bring the output of the fast noise into the yellow input of the displace node. Now at the minute nothing appears to happen because nothing is displacing this fast noise. So to get the displacement we're going to use another displace node. So we're going to click away, I'm going to type displace again, and this time we're going to take the output of this second displace node into the green input of displace 1. Now to drive this displace node we're going to need another fast noise. So we'll come and we'll put a second fast noise in. And we're going to do the same again. We're going to view it, detail, contrast, brightness, scale, and seeth rate. And then we're going to put the output of fast noise 2 into the yellow input of displace 2, which in turn is going to affect displace 1. So if we now come into displace 1, we can use our refraction strength to start impacting, and you can see we're getting this sort of swirly smoky type effect. Now if we view everything in the media out, we see nothing because we haven't merged it on yet. So we need to take the output of the displace 1 onto the output of media 1 to create the merge, and now you can see we're starting to get some smoke around this edge here. At the minute it's everywhere because we haven't timed the effect. So next we can come back to displace 1 and we can use the offset to kind of position it a bit more where we want it, and we can maybe up the refraction. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add some colour to this, so we will use a colour corrector. And we can change the colour of our smoke to whatever we wish. maybe between these two we can add a blur node just to soften that pattern a little bit. And we can turn our effect on and off much as we did before using the merge node. So if we find the point that his thumb clicks, which is there, come to our merge node, keyframe blend, back one frame, keyframe blend all the way down. So now as we come in, we've got no effect until there. Now this displace node at the minute isn't being displaced, so we can displace it with another fast noise or something else. We can try using a plasma node, so shift spacebar, plasma, which isn't supposed to be there. There's your plasma node. So this is the plasma node. It's quite a funky little thing. It appears to do nothing until you start modifying things. So if we right click on each center of our plasma node, modify with and perturb, and do that for all of them. You can equally use shake for this. I just find perturb a little bit easy to control personally. Now what we need to do is come into our modifiers, which has appeared at the top, and we can reseed them all so that they're not all starting at the same place, and we can play that through and you get this effect going on. Now what you can do is adjust the speed somewhat on each of them to try and get a bit of a smoother sort of pattern going on. Oops, it's gone right down to 0, that's not what we want. So we've got a more gentle sort of pattern. Now this acts the same as the fast noise. If you place it into the displace node, it tells the displace node how much to sort of displace by and where to displace. So we'll do that, we'll pop that into displace 2. Now if we view everything, we can click displace 2 and bring our refraction strength up, and you can see you've got yet a different sort of pattern going on. Again, we can play with the offset a bit, see if we can't get it a bit further up the hand, and from here on in it's about sort of tweaking things to try and get better sort of positioning for the effect. The other thing you can do at the minute, both displaces are set to radial. You can set them to X, Y so that you can actually control the X and Y displacement separately. So X will control left to right, Y will control up and down. So again, we can maybe use that to get sort of better coverage, and we can do the same in our other displace node. Until we get something we kind of like. And there you have a sort of smoking, glowing hand thing going on. Again, you can sort of bring your blur down a bit if you don't want it quite that strong, so you get more of a distinct pattern. And yeah, that's kind of the smoking hand thing. Okay, the last couple of effects involve rays, or using rays in different ways. So the first one, we'll bring a clip onto the timeline, select it, go into Fusion. Now this time we don't need an instance, but again we need to decide where our effect is going to start, so I'm going to stick with the same format of when his thumb closes, so about there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to shift spacebar, type raise, and I'm going to use the raise node, which is this little fella. Basically take the output from media in, the output from your raise to media out, and start playing with the settings. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to keyframe the blend. I'm going to go back a frame and drop the blend to 0. Now as his thumb comes in, the effect's going to kick in. Now what I did with this particular clip was I centered the raise on this bit here, the bottom of the sort of wall between the elevators. So to do that, if you put your raise in, you've got a handle in the middle of the screen that you can drag to wherever you want the raise to be emanating from, which is there. So just come back to the first frame that the raise were turned on, and I'm just going to take it just off screen because it's about there, and then it's just a case of keyframe your center and animate every couple of frames just to keep it in that position. And on 17 it's a pain in the bum because if you do something here and then press your arrow keys, it fine moves this, which isn't what I want to happen. What I have to click outside, go another couple of frames and then come back in. By clicking outside, it seems to keep my arrow keys going as frame by frame rather than fine tuning the little doohickey thing. Pain in the bum. On 16 it didn't used to do that. Now I don't know if I have accidentally toggled something or whether it's a quote feature of 17, but either way I don't like it. So we keep every couple of frames just keyframing and moving our rays to the point that we want them to come from. And just work through until you get to a point that you want the rays to disappear. So I'm going to say just as he starts swinging around this corner, so we'll call it there. I'm going to keyframe blend again. I'm going to come forward 3 frames. And then I'm going to kick the blend down to 0. So what you end up with is this. Now what we need to do is now play with our raise settings to get what we want. You can get them as strong or as subtle as you want them, really. It's all a bit of trial and error. So we have our rays come on and they go off again. In, on, and off. So that's that one. So for this last example, I'm going to bring in a short clip of Fortnite, but what I'm going to need to do is slip edit that. To about there, so that we can get the effect we want. Okay, so we've lined our clip up. I'm going to get rid of the audio because I don't want it, and I'm going to take this clip into Fusion. Now we will work through the clip to the point that we want our raise to happen, which is about just where she shoots the top of his head. I think it's about there, yeah. So I'd say there. So once we've got where we want to be, we're going to use a raise node again. So shift spacebar, raise, bring it in. Output of media 1 into your raise node. We can view it. You can see what it's doing, so we can maybe take it down a little bit so it's not quite as what we can also do, because it's sort of affecting everything around here, is we can bring in an ellipse mask, pipe that in, so now it's having less impact on the outside, but it also cuts off quite quickly. So if we get it as big as we can, then maybe soften the edges off a bit, so we've got that kind of effect. Yeah, that's not too bad. We've got the rays here, that's what we're after. So now we just need to animate them. So we're going to say that's the point that they start, so we'll come to our raise node, we will come to blend and keyframe, we'll go back a frame, and we will kill the rays, forward, keyframe the center, and then do a couple of frames, maybe 3 frames, and just keep it to 3, possibly keep it going until we get the sort of explosion of there. So call that our last frame, come back to our blend, keyframe it, forward 1 frame, and kill it. And now we should have a little flash of rays as the gun goes off. Like so. Pipe it to your media out, and you can go back and you will have your effect. Like so. Bit random, a bit different. It's not usually my thing, as I've said before. I'm not a game player. Well, that's not true. I am a game player, I just don't play this kind of game. And I'm certainly not a montage maker, so the nuances of making montages are beyond me. But if you found it useful or you liked it, feel free to hit the subscribe button, like, and hit the notifications, and maybe next time I'll go back to what I do best, and that's doing sort of effects in Fusion as opposed to game stuff.